Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, if you're like me and struggled with finding your purpose again after serving, this episode is for you. If you stay till the very end, my brother Dan and I are going to give you three things that you can start doing today to find your purpose. My brother Dan is amazing, amazing individual, a friend of mine for a long time, author, podcast host, radio host, the Swiss Army knife of positivity. You're going to really enjoy this. So, Dan, my brother, welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother. Good to finally get on your podcast here. I've watched it. I followed it for quite some time. I've read a lot of your inspirational comments and stuff that you put out over the time and how you've supported other people. And it is an absolute pleasure to finally be on here with you.
I love it, and I'm so grateful for you. First question right out the gate: what is your definition of resiliency?
When you look at challenges that we have in life, it's for us to be able to persevere, push our way through it, deal with it as we can. I say with resiliency and stuff like that, it's not only to stand alone, but to stand with others in that fight. We have to bounce back from things, that knock us down from time to time. Is to get back up on those feet, persevere, drive forward. And then you have to look at, psychologically how we're able to deal with it. And part of dealing with it is dealing with it not by yourself, but dealing with it through others, with others, standing with them, reaching out to them, asking them, can you guide me? Can you direct me? Can you help me? Can you just listen to me? And I think resiliency is something that, at some point in time we all go through. But it's our challenge, it's our mission, it's our journey, if you will, to get on to the other side of it.
I love it, and I love Rocky Balboa said, you get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8, and you just keep going. And I think that's one thing veterans, first responders have in common. We're used to getting knocked down, but we're used to getting right back up again. And even if it takes one of our brothers or sisters to help us back up, as long as we're getting up and not staying down, I think that's what counts, right?
That is absolutely correct. You're right on point with that. And you've done so much in that area that I've watched, and I've been so impressed by your podcast and your series and your book. I ordered your book, I read your book, and I'm really grateful for that. I know you got some more publications out as well. I was kind of glancing on that, kind of prepare last night for my podcast here today. And I think you got some other publication I'm going to order up as well. Seen one on Amazon also.
Yep, that was my first book. It's called A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. Yep. It's my story, but the last 2 chapters are what does depression looks like? It's not what you think it looks like. And what does addiction looks like? It's not what you think it looks like. And 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans and first responders struggling with PTSD. So I don't make any money off of it. It's all about paying it forward. But so let's talk about you. Give us a quick down and dirty. Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you become the man that you are today?
100 plus years ago, give or take. I'm actually exaggerating just a bit.
And you just celebrated a birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, my brother.
I did. I appreciate that. You sent a wonderful little meme, if you will, or picture, if you will, of 2 white wolves on there. It may have been collective of more wolves than that in the background, but a couple of wolves, which is something I absolutely love. Have it on my back wall here, pictures and sleep catchers and stuff of wolves and such as that. But I was born in Bakersfield, California. I don't hope that anyone holds that against me, but born in California. My story is, and I tell this when I teach classes, is we came to North Carolina, ran out of gas, and stayed. That's my story. It's not true, but it's my story anyway. So we stayed in North Carolina. I was raised in North Carolina. I was separated from my parents at a very early age. I was raised by a foster family. Foster family, I think I was 13 and a half years old when they split up. Um, Here I am out, 8 years of age, mowing grass and doing things what I can to make money in the early years because there wasn't a lot of money to go around, even from my foster family and such. Uh, Started doing that. Started working in A&P grocery store, Rite Aid pharmacy, and such. Went to school in Greensboro, North Carolina. Grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina. There, graduated high school. Shortly after high school, I went into the delayed entry program for the U.S. Army. I had a friend of mine who was an Army recruiter. He was a student of mine as well. I was a martial artist for a number of years. I started training martial arts in about 1965. So he was one of my students, if you will. He was an Army recruiter. I had friends in the military, friends in the Marines and such, and I'd have probably gone something else, but I wanted to go into a branch of service. He reached out to me because he was an Army recruiter. I said, okay, what you got for me? And I was leaning towards, because I was liking law enforcement in my early years, so I wanted to be an MP. Well, they looked and stuff like that, and I went in right after Vietnam, and they said, "Well, you're not tall enough." And I told them then, of course, I use the same story now. Well, I haven't reached my full height potential, but I'm still working on it. So I wasn't able to go into MP, so I went into combat arms, became a field artilleryman to begin with. At one point in time, USAREC reached out to me, United States Army Recruiting Command, to be a sports clinician in the Army. So I gave karate demonstrations for the Army. So I stayed TDY for many, many, many months, doing TDY martial arts demonstrations. When you look at the Forrest Gump movie, and he was playing ping pong for the Army, that's absolutely what they did. I don't know if they still do it now or not, but with USAREC and the sports clinicians program. So I traveled around with ping pong players. I traveled around with golf players, soccer players, volleyball players around the United States, giving sports clinics to high schools and colleges, university level, to try to recruit people for the U.S. military. And they said, well, this is what you can do in your off-duty time. Well, needless to say, there wasn't a lot of off-duty time in the military. But still, I was able to do that. I was a post karate instructor, a couple of different posts and such. So I did that for a number of years. I spent 10 years in the military. I got out and went almost immediately into law enforcement following my service career. Went in as a reserve officer, then a police officer outside of, and you may have heard of it, at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
Called it Camp Swampy, but it eventually became one of the Joint Readiness Training Centers. It's had a couple of name changes, but I think it's back to Fort Polk now. But I served there, got out of service there. Spent a lot of time overseas in the Middle East. My office was with the old CTAF group, South Europe Task Force, out of Vicenza, Italy. So I spent a lot of time there, spent a lot of time in countries of Turkey and over in Israel, teaching and training over there. But when I got out of service, became a cop, they didn't mind. I was only, 5'8" at the time. So became a cop. We had to become an EMT before we became police officers. So I served in that role as well as a police officer. Later on, did a lateral transfer over to Savannah, Georgia. Became a police officer in Savannah, Georgia, police detective, Savannah, Georgia. Did a lot of cases as a detective, homicide cases, child abuse, child sexual abuse cases, and such that I did over the years. Went to a lot of schooling associated with law enforcement. Years later, I got out of law enforcement, started doing security work. I did security work for like 20 years. I've been a security officer, security guard. I became let's see, a federal security officer, security guard for Department of Homeland Security, Federal Protective Services, a federal contractor, if you will. General manager, director of operations for security groups, security teams. But all along, basically, I was a teacher and trainer. That's been my passion. That's been everything that I wanted to do all along. 6 years ago or so, I got with a company called Allied Universal, largest contract security company in the world. Started out as a guard, became a field supervisor, became a client manager within 10 months. Then I went on into the human resource aspect of it. And then in as a trainer, I just retired very recently, 50 plus years of service for a lot of different organizations, companies, agencies, if you will. But I still teach, I still train people, and that is my continued passion. That's
So,
the version.
as I'm looking, you had to pivot a couple times. You pivoted from the military to law enforcement to security work, EMT. So a lot of times you had to learn how to pivot, and you had to learn how to reimagine and reinvent yourself. And I think that's where a lot of veterans and first responders struggle, is when you have to hang up that uniform or the gun belt for the last time. It's your whole life has been wrapped up in that one thing, and when you're no longer that one thing, I think that's when a lot of people like me struggled, and I attempted suicide when I could no longer be that one thing. So, how does a person go about reimagining and reinventing themselves after service?
When I was in the military, and I have to back up just for a moment and then launch myself into the other fields of operation, field of training and such. I did a lot in service that transferred into what I did in the civilian world. I still support service members. I still, if they called me up today to go serve in the military or something like that at my agedness, I could pack stuff up for them if nothing else, but I could shoot a gun pretty darn good. So, but if, I would back up into that role and redo that role again. But that role in the military is what prepared me for the role in the civilian world. And so reimagining myself, repurposing myself into those different roles, quite honestly, for me was an easy do, because I'd already done something very similar to it in my military service. I grew up very quick in the military service. I wasn't a bad kid or anything like that, but I grew up very quickly in the military service. I can tell you, I can remember my reception station days, the drill sergeant Small and Santiago, who were my drill sergeants in the early days. And when I jumped off the cattle truck at the reception station, stuff like, I remember all of that to this day. And all of that set the stage to launch me into doing other things. So when I jumped from military into law enforcement, I mean, I had marksmanship skills that went along with me. I had discipline went along with me. And it was those things that attributed to my rise and the learnedness, if you will, of being able to do the role as an EMT. I did first aid in the military, learned first aid in the military, corps type stuff, corpsman type stuff, and such as that in the military. That transferred into becoming an EMT. The roles that I took there, I found the responsibility of doing that from those military days. It set the stage for that. Going from law enforcement into security services. I mean, back in the early days in law enforcement, down in Louisiana, down in Georgia, you weren't making a lot of money. You had to work things like security jobs on the side. You were at mostly hospitals and stuff in the early days. You had to do your security operations at hospitals and stuff. They still do that. They still do it in a number of other operations as well. But, that set the stage of doing security then, is how to get into security now. When I got into the different companies and corporations and stuff in the security field, Um, I started out as a guard. When I went to, Katrina and Gustav and Ike and Wilma and the floods in Iowa, 08, 09, I knew what to do because I'd already done similar things or learned similar things in my military or in my law enforcement career. I've done Hugo. I've done, Hurricanes Andrews and stuff like that. So that set the stage. I wrote a book on disaster, or co-wrote a book on disaster response in 2006 for law enforcement, military, and security personnel to go into the disaster related zones after the events. All of that set the stage. When I got with Allied Universal 6 years ago, I was already prepared for that role as a trainer, but they didn't have a trainer position available. So I paid my dues there. I paid my dues as a contract officer for Department of Homeland Security, Federal Protective Services, and I worked my way up. And the only reason I worked my way up, if you will, is the dedication and the want and the drive to be the very best I could be. I wanted to be better than everyone else around me. I always supported everyone else around me, but I wanted to show what I can do. And I got a letter from a first sergeant back in the Army many years ago, and it was a response, and he put in that letter. I still got it. When asked to do something for battalion command, stuff like that, my answer was right away. And that's what it's always been, right away, whatever needed to be done. The companies, the corporations, the people I've served over the years, and it's 50 plus years of blessed service, it was to support the operation, support the mission, support the people, and support the ones who couldn't support themselves.
I love it. Now we got a question from Miss Lori Payne. It says, when you moved out of the military, did you find commercial sector was challenging to recognize your credentials?
Was it what again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. When military commercial was challenged to recognize, no, they didn't challenge it. They embraced it quite often of what I did. They still, even in the most latest company that I went to go work for as a client manager, as a guard, as a trainer, such as that, they look back to my military service. They wanted people in my role to have had that military service, and I just thought it was great.
Lori, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that question.
So now you've worked extensively with military, with first responders, and now I got to give big shout out to EMTs. A lot of times they don't get the love they deserve, and I got to give big shout out to EMTs and dispatchers. They don't get the love that they deserve, but they're so vital to what they do, and I just want to give a big shout out and love to the EMTs and the dispatchers. So now you work so closely with these individuals. What have you noticed when it's time for them to finally leave service? Because I know, like we talked about before we got on this show, that a lot of people, when they retire, within a year or within 5 years, they expire. So what are you seeing when people get out of service, and do they need to start something new?
I think, yes, I do. I think they need to keep challenging themselves. I think they need to find, as much passion as I had or currently still have in everything that I've done, military, law enforcement, whatever. I still want to challenge myself to be at the same level as much as I can be, at age factor, whatever, at the same level of appreciation for the organization, the military service, the law enforcement service, the security service, stuff like that, the appreciation for it. I'm still very much, involved in training, but I say don't stop. I had brothers and sisters in military and law enforcement who within 6 months, a year, whatever like that, they kick back and rock themselves to death. And I say, don't give up. We all have our challenges. We all have in some cases, we have our demons that we have to deal with, and things that we have become involved in that affects our lives and stuff like that. But as mentioned to you before we launched and stuff like that, is to reach out to people. I mean, I have taken calls and I've asked people to, can I call you? Can we speak? Do you have a moment to speak? Stuff like that. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I had one guy in my who was still in service as a National Guardsman, if you will, National Guard, that had the demons from when he was in the Middle East and the sandbox, that he was involved in taking someone's life. He took more than one, but it was a particular story that he was dealing with. And he was going into an armed role in security industry, in Department of Corrections, if you will. They were, for the state of North Carolina, the contracts that they have is in support of the Department of Corrections. They don't work directly for Department of Corrections, but they are in support of. So they have security operations in support of Department of Corrections. He was challenging himself. He was listening to family members that said, you shouldn't be doing this. You should step away from this. You should never carry a firearm again, stuff like that. Because of what you've seen and what you have done in the past in his military career. He's still in the military. Not in the National Guard, still serving. And I spent, we all broke for lunch, and I spent my lunch hour, which I gladly would have spent longer than that, but we had a class I was teaching in Eastern North Carolina at the time. And I sat there and I talked him into doing what he felt was right for him. And he wanted this job so much. He wanted to be able to persevere. And he did. And he's still serving now. And he has reached out to me a couple of times to thank me for that conversation. Taking a moment to spend time, whether it is electronically, whether it's over a podcast, whether it's over a radio call, or your listeners, chiming in with their very, very valued, very appreciated comments and stuff like that. That is how we get to the next step. That's how we get down the pathway and the journey onto something that is far greater for all of us.
I love that. Now, I got a question to ask. I got so many questions to ask.
Brother, I'm here.
But, military and first responders, we see, and I try not to curse, but it's my show, so I guess I can do it. We see and we do shit that the average everyday citizen doesn't see or doesn't do. Yep. And a lot of us, we have emotional trauma from the things we've seen and the things that we've done. So, talk about people that, struggle with post-traumatic stress, people that have lost people from, being over there, going outside the wire, not coming home, or even losing a partner. So how do you deal with, post-traumatic stress?
First, I would say that, I've dealt with my own stress over the years. I have to say I have dealt with that. I've seen a lot over the years. I've tried to channel it, to compartmentalize it, to put it in a place, but it's, sometimes you reach back into the basket and you pull it back out. My wife and my wife, Linda, we've both seen family members who have taken their own lives. Both men, if you will, served in the military service. And, it impacted us as well. I've got a lot of friends. I've got a lot of acquaintances, if you will. I've got people that I've met, people that I've never met, but I've talked to, who have their own, if you will, use the term demons, their own challenges, their own things that they must deal with on a regular basis. One of the best things for them to do, in my opinion, is to talk, and talk with people who are understanding. Talk with people who will listen. It's the ones who put themselves, we got the 22 a day campaigns that are out there to try to prevent military service suicides and such. The numbers are out there. I would quite often launch out the information for suicide hotlines and such that are out there for others to do. I dealt with my own because I've seen a lot as an EMT. I've seen a lot as a cop, officer-involved shooting cases, stuff like that. I still investigate officer-involved shooting cases, or an expert witness in that area. I do things for attorneys' offices and such, officer-involved shootings and accident-related cases with guns, or negligent cases with guns, whatever. And so I deal with a lot. And what I try to do is put it in its place, place of importance, if you will, and try to drive forward. But I have to say that you've got to have that brothers and sisters out there who are in support of. You're going to have the negatives that you have from like family members, like this one young man I was talking to at lunchtime that one day, who had his own demons, and the demons quite often, quite honestly, was not he himself having to deal with it. It was dealing with family members who could not understand what he was going through, weren't supportive of what he was going through. And I think that the support network is not only close knit, family related, it has to expand out. It has to reach out. You, my friend, my brother, you reach out to other people and you hear the challenges that people going through, accept those challenges, and you help redirect them down the correct pathway, or another pathway to the betterment of each and every one of them. That's what I want to continue to do. I continue to serve even in my retirement, if you will. I'm not, retirement's just a word. I'm still working. I just, now I have a little bit more time for some honeydews and stuff like that around the house that I put off for a number of years. But, my deployments were months and years away from home, away from family. I'm very familiar with that. And people come back from those deployments, if you will, having to have dealt with that as well. And then it's almost like reestablishing a relationship with your family.
Yeah.
Well, the reestablishment, if you will, is necessary for us to continue on. It's necessary for our psyche. It's necessary for our, our well-being, if you will. And it's the well-being that all of us need to address. And then I say, never give up. Never give up hope. Never throw up your hands and say, no mas, no more. You've got to persevere. You've got to go on, because, and I say this because when I talk about use of force cases, when I talk about, things along that line, people rely on you. You might not think so, but they rely upon you. They rely upon your companionship, your friendship, your regular input. And it's very important. Even in when I was in the military, you didn't have the internet and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You couldn't just, hit an email or jump on a FaceTime or something like that with somebody. You had to call them up on the phone, stuff like that. We had a master sergeant that was killed in the Middle East. He had like 2 weeks left in country. And it was a terrorist-related event. And this was back in the late 70s, 79. And I called my dad shortly thereafter that. And I said, did you see it on the news? Well, we didn't have the 24-hour news at that time. And so the input, if you will, has changed over the years, which is a great thing. But now the United States and other countries, other parts of the world, they see the horror that is out there, and they find it difficult to deal with. Well, quite honestly, if you've been in it, it's difficult to deal with as well, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Now, Dan, let me ask you, a question, because when we're in the military or when we're in law enforcement or whatever we're doing, there's a routine. Even when you're in the military, you get up. I don't care how drunk you got the night before, you're doing PT, or when you're on the job, you get there early, you clean your weapons, you have a routine. But then when you no longer have a routine, I think that's when it can get you jammed up. So how important is it to establish a daily routine for your physical and your mental health?
I still get up early in the morning, 0 dark 30, normally 4 o'clock. If I ever sleep into 5 o'clock, it's like I did this morning. That half my day's gone. That's how I feel, but truly it's not. But I that's still part of my routine, getting up early. That's part of my routine, and I've maintained it. Some people blessedly like to sleep in. They like to enjoy that moment. I try to do that moment, and I can't do it because I was routine and regimented all the years. What I watched one time, and I'm sure you saw it, and it was a admiral. I don't know what level of admiral he was, probably a 4-star level admiral, but he was talking to the Naval Academy, and he was talking about making your bed.
Yes.
In the morning.
Yep.
Making your bed. The challenge of doing that, if you make the bed, at least if nothing else goes right the rest of the day, you got a fresh bed to come back to in the evening, at the nighttime, stuff like that. But you've accomplished one task that could set the stage for the rest of the day. We sit back and we enjoy, we plan ourselves in front of a TV, we plan ourselves in front of the phones or the tablets or whatever like that, the computer and stuff. Now you and I are onto the computers quite often.
Yep.
But you've got to have that moment. My routine has changed up a lot. I could tell you that I was up at 3:30, 4 o'clock every day, getting ready. I drove an hour and a half to work, did a good 8 to 10 hour day, drove an hour and a half back, came in, embraced the wife, had supper, watched a little bit of TV or whatever like that, got cleaned up, went to bed, same day in, day out, same old. I still have some regimented timelines and stuff like that, things I have to do. But one of the best things I found for myself, making the bed, the wife makes the bed. I have made the bed, so I know very well how to make the bed, but she does that. And that's part of her routine.
Yeah.
Part of her routine. Not because I said, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, but that's part of her routine. And she feels better about it. If she doesn't do it, she'll comment on it later in the day. So very seldom is it ever not done, if you will. But that's her regimen. I find that if I at least sit there, if I at least spell things out in my book about what I'm going to do, putting it down in some data planner like I was still running an organization. Yep. And by the way, I do have your thank you card and your little sticker there as well. Excellent. That's along with your book. I haven't tossed it away. It's in fact, it sits up on my bookshelf there. Your thank you card and your little sticker along beside it. As a reminder of resiliency, as a reminder of pushing forward, as a reminder of, there are people out there who truly care. And that's what I think of you. You truly care. And there's many of us out there who truly care. It's got to push. But let me get back to it real quick. Routine's important, but I plan out my routine as much as I can. I planned out this morning knowing, I've got a lot of projects going on and redoing my house and stuff like that. And we're going to go out later on today. But, it's setting the stage for the day and then driving forward to accomplish as many of those tasks as you put out there. And you feel better about yourself when you're done back in the evening. I mean, when I finish doing this or I finish doing that, I mean, I cut the yard a couple of days ago. I have a big yard, several acres. And when I cut my yard and I landscaped it out and stuff like that, and I got cleaned up and I sat down that evening, I had a sense of accomplishment. And that's what you got to do. Set the task. You drive as hard as you can to accomplish as many of those things on your task list for the day, and then reap the benefits of that those feelings that you'll get knowing that you accomplished. Even if it's only one thing, you've at least accomplished that one thing that day. I'm reading what's on. I almost have to put my glasses on, but yeah. So, did you want to ask that question? You want me to respond?
She said, no, it says, do you do keynote speaking? If you don't, you should. Really great.
I appreciate you on that. And I'm sorry, the name on that?
Lori. Her name is Lori.
Lori, I appreciate you. If it's same Lori, I appreciate you again on that as well. I have, I'm fixing, and maybe we'll get into it. Some of the podcasts I've done in the past, podcasts I'm going to be doing in the future. But I did a keynote years ago in law enforcement for the International Police Association meeting when I moved up into Toronto. It was my first summer in Toronto. And I led into the speech and I said, the coldest winter I ever spent was the summer I spent in Toronto. So, I hadn't been through a winter in Canada yet, but it was mind-boggling, if you will. It was a shocker. But I have done keynote speaking from time to time. I would love to get back doing that. It's probably, teaching and training people is something I like to do. And I got that from being a martial artist years ago, being in front of people. And I do have to say this, and you talk about getting in front of people or in front of a camera. I'm looking at you and I should be looking at my camera in front. But I have, and I use a lot. My wife, sometimes she'll sit there as my producer and count how many times I said I would like very much to continue and teach people for as long as I can. One of my instructors and firearms instructor said, Meadows, how long are you going to be doing this? And he's talking about me firearms teaching, and I still do it. And I said, until I can't do it anymore. And I just recently, in my age, I've just recently recertified again as an instructor in the state of North Carolina to teach officers firearms. And I recertified in a number of areas, law enforcement areas, whatever that I do, or NRA, what I do. And I still continue to teach. But what I was going to say earlier was when I was doing podcasting and I was doing radio, I was more nervous getting in front of a microphone doing radio than I was podcasting. Now, you look at, I think it's Kevin Leary and stuff like that. If some of you, I mean, he's on a number of different shows and news shows and stuff like that. Guy that was on, what was it, Shark Tank or whatever.
Yep.
I think he still is, but I really haven't watched that much.
His name was Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful would sit behind a mic, and you would see him because you have your background going up. I got mine in behind, but anyway, he would sit there with a suit and tie and jacket on, stuff like that from the waist up. But below, he would have clogs on. He would have pajama bottoms on or whatever like that. And I would always call my studio the Fuzzy Slippers Studio because oftentimes I wore fuzzy slippers in the class. I mean, in the radio station, stuff like that. Well, I got my clogs on at least.
There you go.
but my Crocs, if you will. But I enjoy talking to people, and if I can help one person get to the other side of darkness, then I've done everything in my life that I want to do.
And I appreciate that. Now, like I put out a post today. I put out something on YouTube today that for me, I'm a gratitude guy. Uh, I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for my friends, my family, my wife. But before I go to bed every night, I give I pray, of course. I pray for my wife. I wrap my arm around my wife and I pray for her. But then I give thanks for three things that happened today, and this interview is going to be one of them. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I could see something because I lost my vision years ago, I sit up in bed and literally say, Lord, I don't know what you got planned for me, but today's going to be an amazing day.
Absolutely.
So before I go to bed at night, I'm in gratitude. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm in gratitude. So, and it sounds like you and your bride, Linda, are you guys live a happy life and you guys live a life of gratitude. So how important is gratitude in your life?
I'm grateful for all that has been brought before me, the opportunities given to me, the challenges that I've faced over the years. But I'm very most thankful. I'm thankful for my lovely wife. I think okay, I froze up there just for a moment. I'm thankful for my lovely wife, Linda. She's been with me for a number of years. We've had families prior to that. I have two sons. She has a son, daughter. We have grandchildren. We have many grandchildren, which is a blessing. I'm grateful and the gratitude for that. I'm grateful and gratified for the life that we're able to share now. You know, when going into retirement, and there was something that I believe she presented to me, and it was something that was out there. It was talking about, you know, everything that man, woman has done in their lives for their careers. And then you finally get to the age where you need to be able to kick back and reflect upon those moments, reflect upon your life together. And then what is most important? Now we all have to, I mean, you know, continue to work or whatever because of the challenges of, you know, finances and things that we've bought or purchased over the years or indebted to, if you will. But at some point in time, you got to get to that point where you've got to spend the time with those close to you, or you may lose it forever.
Yep, I agree.
There's a book I'm going to be have been writing on. It's called Scattered Crosses. Scattered Crosses is about the roadside memorials, the roadside on the roads and highways of our great country, other countries as well, on the last moments that a person had on this life because they were involved in a motor vehicle accident. And so this book is about that. And I have seen far greater than my share of, you know, what has happened to people in those final moments. I've lived and been there with them in their final moments on that as well. And we've all maybe have had something like that, whether it be a family member or a service member we served with, and you know, different campaigns and stuff that we've been in. I'm gratified for the people I've served alongside, the people I've known, the people I've served with or served for. Again, I just retired recently, and I was thankful. I was grateful that they hired me in those, you know, my final years, if you will, that they hired me for a position, because I think, I've put out, one day I'll pass away, but I put out my thoughts and bringing old school thoughts into the modern day context of doing things. So gratitude is important. Being grateful is important. Being thankful is important. Being blessed is important. And the people that you have in your lives, never take advantage of it. Never take it for granted, because in a moment's time, they could be gone.
Yeah.
I wrote a thing the other day. It's the next moment in our lives that we must be prepared and ready for.
Yeah. And I agree. And one of my favorite sayings is, what you appreciate appreciates.
I agree.
I'm going to say that again for people that are listening. What you appreciate appreciates. And if you want a strong marriage, I would definitely pick up the book, The 5 Love Languages. Great book, helped me out tremendously. But if you appreciate your spouse, it appreciates your relationships get stronger when you show appreciation, thankfulness, and just say, sometimes just saying thank you.
Yeah.
Can sometimes it's more important at sometimes than saying I love you. Just hearing the word thank you can change a person's thought process in a minute. So what is going on in the world of Dan now? What do you got going on? Are you revamping the podcast? Are you going back into radio? What's going on in your world now?
So before I key into that, I do want to say, you talk about thankfulness and stuff. Breakfast and stuff like that, or sometimes, it's hit and miss. You're out the door, stuff like that. She if you will, of peach jam. And so she made me a bagel with peach jam on it and butter this morning. And I remember thanking her for that. So I had to say that just to put it on air. I was going to launch August 1st. I was going to launch the CTW TV Network and Media Group podcast shows similar to what I've did before. I've done 16 shows over there since 2013, 16 different type of shows, hundreds of different shows over the years. The shooting channel.
Oh, what happened? Oh, it seems like we lost him. I don't know. We're going to try to get him back. Hopefully, we can get him back. This is a great interview. And guys, and Lori, I want to say thank you so much for hanging out with us. I mean, you've hung out with us for almost an hour. I'm so grateful for you. Hopefully, we can get him back on. He should be able to get back on, and we're going to try, because, like I said, what a great interview. Hold on, we're trying to get him back on again. He's trying to get back on now. So, guys, if you're listening to this, if you're struggling with post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, try to get help. Make sure that, let me see. Make sure that you're getting help. Make sure that you're, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Most of all, talk to your spouse. that's one thing I think it's so important is talking to your spouse. Like for me, that's one thing that I do is as I'm trying to get back on here just so you know what I'm doing, just so you don't think that I'm ignoring you. So one thing I do is I talk to my bride, and I'll tell her how it's going, you know what's going on in my life, and sometimes it might just be, honey, um, I need help. I need you. Sometimes there we go. Hold on one second, guys. I'm trying to get him back on. So one second. I apologize for this, guys, but stuff happens, and it's okay. We adapt, we overcome. This is why I always put out 90 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's okay. We'll edit all this out. Maybe we'll keep it. We'll see what happens. Um, and like I said, we'll see what happens. Let me see. But we try to get it back on here. And like I said, this type of stuff happens, and but it doesn't matter because we're helping somebody like Lori is sitting here with us for 53 minutes. She's hanging out with us, and she's saying that this type of broadcast is super helpful, rejuvenating. I share these techniques with my spouse, my friends. There we go. So we're back.
Brother, I had to do it. Did you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you good, brother.
I had to do it from my cell phone because the computer is still trying to load up. If it loads up and gets back online, I can finish it out on this. Doesn't really matter. So I'm here on my cell phone making the
Okay. So,
connection.
so what's going on in your world right now, and how can we get in your ecosystem?
Several podcasts will be coming back out in the near future to be on StreamYard. I'm going to try to put it out on Spotify, Rumble as well. YouTube, it will be on YouTube. The first one is called Chase the Wolf. It's one that I've done for a number of years. I've did 16 different programs that I've done, and I've produced another five, so about 21 programs, podcasts, radio shows I've done over the years since 2013. Very first one's called Chase the Wolf. Chase the Wolf is not about chasing the four-legged wolves. It's about chasing the two-legged wolves, the criminals, the thuglians, such as that, the people who want to um, ruin society, prey upon people such as that. So that's the first one, Chase the Wolf. Another one's going to be CTW TV Crime News. It will be a news related program that will deal with different crime news that is on and about the United States and other countries. It will deal with things like predators. Um, when I did that years ago under Wolf Bits, we did shows on death penalty cases, murder suspects, people who have been arrested for murder in the past, active shooter, mass shootings and such. So I did ones on that, and the third one is called Protecting the Tribe. So these are three different podcasts that I've done for years. I'm going to launch them come up probably September 3rd. Um, Protecting the Tribe is about resiliency, if you will. It's about being prepared, plan, prepare, protect. It's about prepper survivalism, if you will, and what I call the wilderness of the unknown. So those things will be coming about. I'm finishing my studies over at University of Sedona and a doctoral degree. So I'm trying to catch up on that because I got behind. I got deployed for like 6 months teaching and training. So I'm trying to finish up on that. And then the writing series and stuff as we go along. But the CTW TV network media group is where I'll be doing the podcast. I'm sure I'm going to probably bring on some others as I've done before. Produced 5 other different shows before, 2 great hosts that did a collective of those 5 shows together. So I'm probably going to relaunch doing that as well, other people's other shows and such. But I'm gearing myself back towards that. Teaching and training still. I do active shooter training for companies and your churches and places of worship and stuff. So I try to keep myself as busy as I can, but still have a home life as well.
I love it. So this is a teaching podcast. So if somebody's about to get out of the military or about to hang up their gun belt for the last time, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for them to help reimagine and reinvent themselves?
I go back to the survival phrases that I normally do: plan, prepare, and protect. So you want to plan yourself what you want to do. Just because you may not think the service, and it depends on the amount of years you're in and the challenges that you're faced with. Plan it out. Plan out your future before you launch yourself into the future. You say, "Oh, my ETS date is going to be on such and such. I have no real plans, but I'm still going to ETS." Plan that out. Plan what you're going to do ahead of time. Research. There are so many things. I mean, if I was, and I'm well beyond this. If I was 35 years of age, 32 years of age, again, stuff like that, just getting out of military, whatever, I would look into federal law enforcement or federal services or whatever along that lines to get into. But plan your next steps before you ever get there. Then prepare yourself for that moment. Prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself physically, prepare yourself by, placing yourself in a position to be able to, maintain, keep yourself afloat, be above the flood line and stuff like that of what it is, because you don't want to drown in despair because you didn't plan out what needed to be done. So prepare for those moments. Then you've got to protect yourself. You want to protect yourself mentally. You want to protect yourself physically. You want to protect those with whom you love, those with whom you share the moments with. I say even as far-reaching as not just your close-knit circle, but beyond the circle. You have your close-knit circle, then you have a broader circle, then you have more circles. So in all, Tap 3 Times is my company name. TAP3X is one of my company names, and it has in the logo of it. And I don't think I have my hat in here. In the logo of it, it's a target, and you are the center of that target. And then each circle that goes around is your expansion into the next journey, into the next realm and stuff like that. So you want to plan for that journey, prepare for that journey, but you want to protect yourself as you go along. Don't step into something without thinking it through before you do it. And sometimes it takes a microsecond of a moment to make a decision, good, bad, or ugly. Well, you don't want it to be a bad or ugly decision. You want it to be the right decision. You want it to be the good decision. So stepping into that, I'm going to hang up the belt for the last time, hang up the weapons for the last time, hang up my, body armor for the last time, stuff like that. Before you hang it up, plan, prepare, protect to go out into that wilderness of the unknown.
I love it. And brother, I just want to say I'm so grateful and humbled for your friendship. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I think I got something out of this talk. I love that, you know, tap times three. I like that. Something that I'm going to use. And I just want to say, brother, thank you for all your support and thank you for the love that you've shown me over the years.
Brother, I salute you. And I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad. I salute you for everything that you do. I appreciate everything you do. I am challenged to maintain and to push out there and to try to with that challenge is to help as many people as I can, as you have done also. And you are an inspiration. I am grateful that you have had me on here today. I've learned a lot from you, listening to you, reading things, reading from your book, and such that I will take into that next journey along with me.
I love it. And guys, make sure you check him out. He's on Facebook. Amazing guy. And if you want a better life, just make sure that he's in it. I love and I appreciate you. And guys, as I end my show every week, every morning we wake up, we have a choice. We can either become a victim or we could be a victor. And if you listen to this show, you're no longer victims of your past. You're victors of your present and your future. And like my t-shirt says, I win, you win. If you listen to the show, you are winners. I love you guys. And remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Dan, my brother, have an awesome week.
Brother, I will do it. Bless you, bless your listeners, bless everyone out there, and stay safe always. God bless
All
you.
right, brother. Give Linda a hug and kiss for us.
I will do it.